Oh, what's going on, guys? Evan, the Dota 2 enthusiast here, bringing you my first Defense of the Ancients 2 gameplay commentary. This is a PC exclusive that I'm finally commentating after much deliberation if I would or not. I don't currently have the proper equipment to do like live comms during gameplay. I'm mostly there, but I just need a headset with headset with a good microphone on it because I'm using my podcasting / post-game commentary microphone, and I didn't really want to go back to my old Logitech crap $10 no audio quality headset. So I am bringing you a Dota 2 gameplay commentary, and I thought about the best ways to go about doing this. My preferred way, of course, would be live, but as I just elaborated on, that's not currently possible. So now the question is, how should I go about doing this, and should I give a basic premise of how Dota 2 is played? Should I plug how I like to play it? I'm not sure. I know that in this gameplay commentary I've kind of come up with a plan, but I don't know if that'll be the future plan of all my commentaries. Of course, if the match was going on, I'd be providing commentary on the actual gameplay, but this time I'll let the gameplay speak for itself, and in the future when they're live, it'll be a different ball game. But right now, you'll see me right here. I'm about to pick Nature's Prophet, who's actually my favorite hero in all of Dota 2, but someone ninjas at like the last second, and I'm sitting here like, who do I want to play? And I'm evaluating the team that I currently have, or the team that I'm currently paired with, because everyone picks their own heroes, and I'll pick, and I have no control of that, of course. So like, what does the team need to improve our match? And I really didn't feel like, I already felt like we had enough carries, but at the same time I wasn't crazy about our picks, and I saw they had a lot of powerful casters. Well, powerful as in Storm is a powerful caster. So I decided I'd go ahead and take Drow Ranger, which is a hard agility carry that I'll talk a little bit more about later. But yeah, so I go ahead and opt into Drow, who's a hero I play very, very rarely. I don't play carries very much, but we'll get into that a little later. Right now I sort of want to do touch on some other things since this is the first Dota 2 commentary, and you'll see me buy the Animal Courier. That's obviously not standard. The carries should not be buying them, but since we have so many carries, we have like a Morphling, and like Rasta could have bought it reasonably, but I didn't think he was going to buy it, so I'd rather spend my starting gold than not let us have a courier, because it's really important that we have a courier early game. You know, in case things go wrong, we can bring potions and things like that to us. For those of you who don't know, the courier carries items, so we can bring healing stuff to us, etc. But let's go into sort of my scripted introduction I kind of planned out for this commentary. I've already sort of explained to you guys why it's a post-game commentary instead of a live commentary. It's just an equipment issue that I will eventually remedy once the income picks up again. And since it's come up, I'd like to remind everyone, I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm not paid to make these, etc., etc. These aren't monetized. I'm not partnered with any group on YouTube. In other words, all the commentary equipment, I'm just starting out. I have to buy it all out of hand, so sometimes the budget does get in the way, and that's just something the subscribers and I both have to deal with, because unfortunately I can only buy what my income supports, and I've got other expenses like books and school and all the things that just go into living. So that's that. So that's why it's a post-game commentary. So what to expect in my Dota 2 gameplay commentaries? Well, I'm not really sure. This is the first time I've ever commentated Dota 2, but there are definitely some things I want to just throw out there. First off, I play in the low skill bracket. I have history with Defense of the Ancients dating back to its original inception on Warcraft, the original, before Throws and Throne. I actually played Defense of the Ancients before it reached All-Star Edition, and then I didn't really like it very much, so I never replayed it again, and eventually I winded up getting into the Dota All-Stars on Warcraft 3 and playing in Clan TDA and stuff like that under my Battle.net nick. And of course the Warcraft 3 version was always fine, but I just kind of fell out of favor with it. And then once Dota 2 came to Steam, I finally picked it up and decided, let's do it. My PC is powerful enough to play the game on Ultra and hopefully record gameplay, 30 frames per second. We'll see how this uploads and things like that, and how my codec works out, etc. First time for everything here, but yeah, that's why we're doing it. So I started in the Warcraft 3 era. Never had a team of friends to play with. I did play some scrims with some people. For a while there, I was actually pretty proficient at Dota 1, and fairly decent scrim team. Not competitive by any means, but they won most of the games they went into. Picked me up as an alternate, so every now and again I play with them and have an organized team. But like this match here, I'm rolling alone. I don't have anybody with me, so it's just me doing this. So I have unreliable teammates, and I'll get to that a little later. So my skill bracket is low tier according to DOTA2. I'm hoping to get that up to at least medium tier. I think I'm a strong enough player to be in a higher tier. I definitely have a lot to learn about this game, both in there's some heroes I'm just not at all proficient with, and coupled with the fact that sometimes I have a hard time knowing when to be aggressive and when to be defensive. I know I play well enough not ever to just feed, or at least not intentionally feed or do things that would lead to feeding, or at least very rarely. But sometimes I do have a hard time knowing when to risk my life. Particularly when I play heroes like Drow Ranger, which is really important they stay alive and can rice up to some good items. So as a result, I'm just really timid sometimes, and that will result in some deaths this game, and I'll talk a little bit more about those when they happen. But that's kind of my history with Dota. I'm a veteran from the Warcraft 3 era. I've played in some competitive scrims, but not really. Just, casual group of 5 people versus 5 people, no one professional by any means. Playing in the low skill bracket and trying to get up a bracket. I have about 110 recorded games, but I played a lot more than that just because of the lever issues inherent with Defense of the Ancients. I have terrible luck with chests. I've opened quite a few and gotten terrible items, so I'm done opening chests. And you'll see me screw up a lot. So if you came here expecting to see, high-end Dota 2 gameplay, this is probably not the place to go. Now, if you're just looking to see sort of an average player Dota try to get better at the game and just see what it's all about from a low-level perspective where it's not, everything's not so scripted. Because I find in high-level gameplay, just watching it and maybe occasionally getting invited with a friend into a high-skill bracket, things are actually easier for me. That's not because I'm necessarily in the quote-unquote Prozor's skill level, so much as it's just easier to play when you can reliably count on your team to do everything they're supposed to, and etc. Now, right there I got forced back by Razor because of his nukes and Drow's really low HP, and this is where I screw up. Oh, this isn't it. It's later. Yeah, here it is. See, he was so low that I thought I could finish him off, but unfortunately the creeps got me, and that resulted in him getting a double kill. And Razor can... Razor's a strong hero late game if he gets the right items. His static link just steals DPS from heroes, and I'm entirely reliant on my physical DPS, because I don't have any magical nukes or anything like that. So... that's it's a strong hero. I like Razor a lot, and he has a great move speed, and he's kind of fragile though, but this isn't a Razor video. I'm hoping eventually I can get some gameplay of nearly all the heroes in the game, which will force me to learn more. I do play a large variety of heroes. I've played almost every hero in the game at least 3 or 4 times, at least in practice mode or online, but I tend to gravitate towards heroes I know, at least in all pick. When I play Select Draft, I only have 3 to choose from, so it's much more original. But I try not to random because the extra starting gold is nice, but I kind of feel like it distorts, especially if I was going to do a commentary of it. I feel like every time I random it kind of distorts the value of the game, because starting with that extra 200 gold on any hero is a huge advantage. Excuse me, I had to get a drink of water there. Well, it's actually cream soda, but that's beside the point. Anyway, since this is the Egoxeno Plays Drow video, let's get into the Drow Ranger. It's either Drow or Drow, I don't really care. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments either way, but she is an agility hard carry, and the way I like to play her is, if my game goes well, I like to build a couple Wraith Bands because my last hitting is lousy, and that makes last hitting easier. And you'll see we'll get a pretty good gank off here with Rasta, was a strong player this game, and I'm using Frost Hairs to make sure he doesn't get away, so then Rasta's gonna hold him out and kill him. That's fine. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I play Drow as a hard agility carry, which is pretty much the only way anybody can play her. My stat and skill build varies a little bit depending on my mood. Sometimes I take extra point in stats for the added agility and life and stuff like that, but this game I did all skills all the time, like the aura for extra damage and stuff like that. So, pretty self-explanatory, and you'll see me alerting mid that there's a ruin here, because they have a bottle, so... We didn't buy any wards because, we have one of those pub match all carry teams with a couple of supports, It's frustrating to play support in all pick games because usually the lineups don't work out very well. So if you're like a roamer or a hard support, it can be hard to do your job correctly, especially because if the people you're supporting don't know how to play. I guess that's true with any role, but it's definitely a problem for me with supports in particular. Because I noticed that I have to compete for farm a lot. Like, I just can't win in public games, and no one really can, because this is bad playing right here. I never should have run away. I should have just fought him and killed him, because I think that if Tide and I had just basically gangbanged him, we could have got him, but either way, I should have either kept running or stood and fight, but instead I had commitment issues, like I said, don't exactly know when to be aggressive, and as a result, he got to bring me down with his AoE nuke. But, as I was saying, I like to play Drow in, you know, I'll just repeat myself over and over. I like to play as a carry, who else? For skill build, I like to just kind of go Aura, Frost Arrows, Aura, Frost Arrows. And depending on when I feel like the team fights are going to start, I get Silence. Because frankly, Drow's only contribution to the team fights early on is Silence. And you'll see that TP worked out because I got to leech the experience off that kill. No one else was around, so I got a huge EXP boost, which is a big deal. Those little EXP boosts make all the difference. Drow's an interesting carry because once she starts getting DPS items, her damage output just goes nuts. Because her agility gain is so high, and her skills make it so really, unless they have an escape mechanism like a Windwalk or something like that, you just can't get away from her because Frost Arrows won't let you get away. Silence can prevent you from blinking, and once you get a couple levels of marksmanship and stuff like that, the damage just goes through the roof. So I really like playing Drow. I think as a hero she's pretty bad. I think that there are other carries that are much better suited to carry even harder. If I give Faceless Void the same amount of gold, he can carry harder than Drow, and I can think of very few situations where Drow would be my ideal carry. I do like the fact she has a Silence, because that's always a very powerful ability against certain lineups, but in general I think she's just lacking as a hero. That doesn't mean the fact that doesn't mean I don't find her extremely fun to play. I love range DPS a lot, so I definitely enjoyed playing this match. But anyway, you might hear a new noise in the background. I just started my washer. I got to get some laundry done for work tomorrow, so, you know, we'll see if you guys can hear that. I'm actually kind of curious if the door is thick enough to keep the sound out or not. Who's to say? But the item build I like to do on Drow, of course, item builds can vary depending on who's playing, or what you're playing against rather, not who. But I'll actually like to go for Shadowblade or Lothars for the War 3 veterans like myself. And I don't really think it's an optimal item. In general, I really don't like Shadowblade, but because Drow is so fragile, I mean, even if you start stacking HP, she's always just a really fragile hero, because she's got such high damage and range and all that stuff, so absolutely, having that extra survivability is pretty convenient, because it's probably one of the better ways to... Oh, Rasta barely makes it to that one unscathed. But yeah, I actually like to go Shadowblade as my first major item after a couple Wraith Bands and, a Magic Stick and stuff like that. I probably shouldn't have even built a Magic Stick this game, but I went ahead and did, which was probably an error on my part. But you'll see, the core items listing here if the game recommends to you, but I actually don't follow those. I kind of do my own thing, but on Drow I actually really like Shadowblade for a lot of reasons. She needs an escape because she has to farm a lot of gear, and yeah, Shadowblade can be kind of with Sentry Wards and Gem, True Sight and stuff like that, but that tends to happen in higher level games, and I don't really think Drow should be played outside of like your average pubs because she's just not the kind of hero that excels in Dota 2 for much. Maybe I don't utilize the hero to its full potential, but I really don't think that Drow is like, the kind of tier you want to be playing if you're in like a high-level CM game. So, in general, Shadowblade's useful, and plus even forcing your opponents to buy gems and stuff like that, and wards and things. It's still valuable just to force them to invest in stuff like that, and if they buy a gem, you can gank them down and take the gem, of course, and if, they place sentries and stuff like that, you can just avoid the sentries, or start de-warding yourself if you have to, but that's probably not worth it. So in any case, yeah, suffice it to say, I really like Shadowblade on her, and it really does help me land the sweet silences. Besides providing an escape mechanism, it does help me initiate with some sweet silences and stuff in the team fights. Now, of course, I see Storm on the wards there, so and I'm like, I can silence him. And I'm like, oh wait, I didn't level up silence. Then I see my health starts to plummet, and I realize, oh crap, I just ran into Furion and Lycan. So I go down, ran into a sort of a team of juggling heroes, also combined with Storm Spirit, who warped over to get me. So there was really no way out of there for me, just bad positioning. It was dangerous for me to go in their jungle. I don't necessarily think it was a bad, well, it was clearly a bad decision. I don't necessarily think it was beyond justification, but didn't work out, so you kind of saw the end result there. After I get the Shadow Blade, so I have an escape, some extra DPS, and all that stuff, I kind of just like to go straight into crits with the Chrysalis and Daedalus, because if you have a couple Wraiths, Shadow Blade, and the kind of stuff I have I'm building towards right now, the Chrysalis critical will hit for 300 to 400 damage depending on your level and your level of marksmanship and stuff like that. But either way, it's going to hurt bad enough to sort of justify it. Neck I got away because I don't have level 4 Frost Arrow yet, but I will. So he goes down and I back up behind the wards because I don't want to risk my life. I wanted the kill, but it's not important to me to get the kill cost of my life. Now, unfortunately, Razor's ult is still going off, despite the shackles. And I didn't even know that actually happened, but I guess once Razor's ult is activated, as long as he's alive, it's shooting, which is pretty neat. Cool ability, so I go ahead and pick up a level of silence. I told Ross there's nothing I could have done to save him because I didn't have silence leveled up. If I had silence, I probably could have done something about that, but I didn't. I actually should have walked a little closer so the lightning bolts might start hitting me, or shot an arrow into the creeps to pull their aggro to me. There's a lot of different things I could have done, but I failed to do any of them, and ultimately Rosta probably died as part of my bad play. So didn't even realize that in the match. But watching this sort of post game, I kind of feel bad about that. One of those mistakes that keeps me in low tier, I guess. But in any case, you'll see me using the courier to ferry me some healing so I don't have to go back to the fountain. Although it took me so long to get that set up, I probably should have just fountained it. My preferred boots on Drow is treads for agility, because I think agility is everything on her, because you just need that attack speed. Agility does so much for the hero. I like phase boots as well because they provide sort of a pseudo escape because you can just run. But, I don't know. I'm more of a treads guy myself. I don't like having to activate phase boots over and over. I know it sounds like a really lame consideration, but considering to me the benefits of treads and phase boots are very similar on Drow. Both provide damage. Treads can provide that early game life against nukers. I really do think treads is the superior choice, but even if one was inclined towards phase boots, not having to click the phase ability over and over is pretty awesome. Plus, considering I'll be building a Shadow Blade, which will allow me to Shadow Walk through units anyway, the removal of collision just really isn't necessary, and I last hit fine without it. But in any case, once you start getting the criticals from the Chrysalis, you're talking 300 or 400 damage criticals, and once you get a Daedalus, they're up in like the 600 plus damage range, depending on your level, like I said before. So going crit, I think, is definitely the way to go. Sometimes I get unlucky and it won't crit at all, but sometimes I get lucky and I get like 7 crits in a row. That seems to be how Dota 2 works for me. I'm not saying there's anything to that, it's just kind of how it works, but I don't really, it seems like it's not consistent. Like, if it's a 25% chance on a Daedalus, it's not like 1 out of every 4, it's like 5 in a row and then 12 shots without one kind of thing. So the inconsistency of criticals bothers me, but ultimately I still think it's the ideal build to go straight into Daedalus, Shadow Walk into Daedalus, and that'll at least allow you to neutral really fast. Sometimes if the game's going really badly, I'll actually build a life-stealing item. Now, unfortunately, Frost Arrows are an orb effect, and you can't have more than one orb effect. So since Lifesteal and Frost Arrows are both an orb, one kind of takes away from the other. But ultimately, I'm okay with it because it lets me neutral safely, because Drow's just not the best for neutraling. I mean, her damage is easily where it needs to be, but I usually don't buy HP regeneration items on her, and she doesn't have anything to tank the creeps from the neutrals, so it's kind of like, without Lifesteal, I can't really do it. And of course, Black King Bar on the core items there is situational. I hardly ever get it, but if it's a team of like all nukers and intel, then I usually do go BKB on her because it's just sort of a called shot. And this Razor's about to go down because it's just being way too confident. Now Razor, of course, has that crazy move speed, so he kind of gets away there, but I run into Lifestealer, but my teammates respond quickly. I didn't ping or anything, and see, now we're kind of deciding what we should do, and Morphlin's got the right idea. Just kill the creeps and force Nyx out, and we'll fight him first, because he's going to do way more damage than Razor is. So he goes down easy, then Razor runs back into the woods. He'll go hide behind the tower, and we could dive him and get him, but looking at the situation, they don't have any heroes on the way to help him. So at that point, Tide decides he has Kraken Shell, so he can tank those creeps pretty well, and I've got the DPS to bring him down quick, so we can just stop this wave, and our wave will come and pull the tower fire, and we'll be getting easier and safer killing Razor. At least that was my thinking. It looks like it was Tide's thinking as well, so that's what went on to happen. And now I'm getting to the point in the game where Drow's actually getting dangerous. I've almost got my Shadow Blade, and once you get Shadow Blade, I actually consider you... Once I have a Shadow Blade, I actually consider Drow pretty dangerous, because you can get good position on people and chase down running heroes in team fights and stuff like that. So I think the viability definitely goes up once you get your first damage item, obviously. Then from there, it just gets better and better. One thing I do like about Drow as a carry, and most carries function this way, but once they start to get some farm, that farm gets faster. It eventually gets to the point where it's just like a total snowball. Kind of like a semi-carry, where once they start doing well, they just get better and better and better. The difference is, where a semi-carry will start to drop off eventually, Drow doesn't have that problem. She'll just keep going and going and going and going, so... once I get my Shadow Blade, I know it's definitely going to be a decent game, unless someone goes straight into gem, or they're already so farmed in the head I'm screwed anyway. But that's kind of thing. My thoughts on why to play Drow is basically because she's fun. Like I said, I don't think she contributes enough in the team fights to be a high tier pick, and I don't think she has a lot of skills to help her farm as quickly as other heroes. I do think Silence is a very powerful ability, as with Frost Arrows, but not having any kind of stun or escape mechanism just sort of takes away from what I would like from the hero. And of course, we find Furion here in our woods. I was hoping to try to port out so I could silence him and, contribute a little more, but it didn't matter. He went down either way. This was... I didn't think this game was going to go that well, because we had all those opening deaths to Razor, and things are starting to pick up now. I always feel like my HP was low this entire game, because I didn't have any kind of HP regen, and I never get HP regen on Drow. So if I don't, fairy healing items to myself, or get, lifesteal, I have to fountain for any kind of heal, and that just seems unfortunate. I hate not having regeneration of some kind on my hero. I mean, I've got a magic stick, but that's more of a burst heal to keep me alive in team fights, and ultimately it's pretty much a waste of gold this game, because so few of their heroes do anything but physical damage. Should have just saved the money and bought a chainmail or something for survivability. Once you get Daedalus, that's pretty much my core on her for Drow is straight into Daedalus, and once you get Daedalus, I kind of think the rest is gravy. Anything's going to help you. I like Butterfly because the evasion helps keep her alive, and she needs some kind of survivability. The more survivability plus damage she can get, the better. So Butterfly's a good strong choice for that because it adds that nice evasion. Now on the flip side, sometimes I get BKB, like I said, if there's just so many casters that I get nuked down to the point I can't really fight and win. But that's kind of where I am with Drow, and as my level gets up, the ultimate, which adds so much agility for every level, gets to the point where she just starts to get really powerful. Another thing I noticed I need to work on in my gameplay is sometimes I don't know where to go, or at least I know where to go, but I don't wind up doing it, so to say. So take right now, I think I'm doing what I need to be doing. I don't need to be running around looking for ganks like a roaming support. I need to be present for some of the bigger team fights, because I think I have enough to contribute at this point that I don't just have to avoid the big team fights in Rice. But sometimes I definitely get that inclination, like I said, to just go looking for trouble, looking for people to kill and stuff like that, because that's fun, but I feel like Drow definitely is the kind of hero that should dedicate most of her time to farming, like any carry. It all pays off in the end, as long as your allies are good enough to hold the lanes and keep you alive and stuff like that, and as long as there's wards, and as long as everything basically goes according to plan, and Drow gets the gear she wants, her late game is so fun. So you just start pelting people with arrows and they just start going down. And that's always been my vision of the Drow Rangers. Let's just get a ton of damage and just blast people down. It's kind of like I kind of view Drow and Sniper as very similar heroes. I think Drow is a stronger hero. Sniper is obviously stronger in lane, but Drow is stronger as a hero overall in my mind. So I guess whenever I see someone pick a Sniper on the lineup, I'm like, man, why couldn't you just pick Drow? But I don't think Drow is a strong solo though, whereas Sniper is a very strong solo. Sniper, in my opinion, might be one of the strongest solos in the game if you get used to playing him. Now I'm going to get... I look down here, and then this is pretty funny, actually. I start seeing the tree come up. I look at Morphling. I was trying to get an ally to take that haste rune because I couldn't do much with it. Then Furion jacks it, and I couldn't decide. I thought they might have had ward vision there since he warped in and grabbed it, but it's also possible he expected a rune, so he just warped in and picked it up. It's hard to say which, but either way. And of course you can't Frost Arrow Ancients being magic immune. And I'm not sure why Lifestealer ran in there because, you know, Rage and being immune to spells is obviously good, but I don't know if it's that good. So he goes down, and now we have a very commanding lead both in kills and in just towers push and everything. It's starting to look a little lopsided. My farm's starting to get pretty big, and even more so is Morphling. It's too bad that Morphling was in this game, because in a way he kind of stole my thunder, because he had a very successful game, and he got farmed up and stuff like that. It almost makes me sad, because part of the fun of being a carry is, of course, just to dominate everybody late game, which is why you play a carry, and Morphling has those early game waveform nukes as an escape, and once Morphling gets farmed, it's really hard to bring him down if you don't have the right lineup, considering that he can morph his strength to the point where he has so much life, and waveform helps him get away and stuff like that. So, this is an easy fight here. I dropped a couple silences. I tried to pick off Razor, but couldn't get the attack off. At this point, this is one of those you should never... I have to acknowledge sort of my thought process at this time in the game, and this is wrong in every respect. Never think like this, obviously, but... So I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I'm having such a good game, and I want to upload this to YouTube and get my first Dota 2 commentary out there. I hope the game just doesn't end. Like, I hope we just don't push and take out the racks and win the game, and... That's a terrible mentality, because if you're that far ahead that you're actually hoping the game doesn't end, your opponents are just sitting there completely bored out of their minds like, oh my god, we're so far behind, it's going to be so hard to come back. The only way they can come back is if we get really cocky and just start doing stupid stuff. You know, it's just sort of, you know, given our lineup versus theirs, with every second this game goes on, them winning becomes near inconceivable. I mean, my damage is going to get to the point where I just start dropping them in the team fights, like they'll have to focus me down. But they'll have a hard time focusing me down with Rasta there, spamming disables, and Morphling being nigh unkillable for their lineup, so... You know, as the game goes on, it's just getting less and less fun for them. They had a good early game advantage, I think. They should have probably pushed, but they didn't really have a lineup that accomplished anything, and that's typical in pubs. I don't think our lineup accomplishes anything either, other than if we get to late game, we win, because we have so many strong carries. And... that's like the usual pub lineup I think I wind up in the most, is I'll be playing and like, man, we have like 3 carries on this team, so it winds up being like a total defensive rice fest until one of them gets strong enough to take out the enemy team. Or God forbid, you know, you wind up with these, sometimes I wind up with these lineups that have the opposite problem, like there is no late game. Like I was playing with some random people, and I think 3 of them were friends, and I was there alone, and they got like 3 intelligence casters and did like a tri-lane, and pretty much dominated the tri-lane. But then we failed to carry in any capacity, so it's just like kind of a letdown. Like, oh man, we had such a good early game, but we don't have any pushers, so now we just can't go anywhere. I don't know. And that's really all I have to say about the Drow Ranger. She's actually a pretty simple hero to play. I think that Drow's one of those heroes that falls into the category of easy to play, hard to play well, and impossible to play in high-level games to great success. At least that would be my assertion. I'm sure someone will probably argue or correct me in the comments, and that's fine. Like I said, I'm not a Dota 2 expert, so I'm all about hearing feedback and suggestions and things like that. And I'm also looking forward to actually doing these in-game, because I think that this is one of those games where you kind of play it in the moment. Like, the post-game I don't think offers as much as the actual live game. And you'll see he'll rage me and try to get a kill on me, and I'll windwalk. And kind of screwed up there, walked into Razor's move. Dropped the silence on those 2, trying to save Rasta, but I just can't get it off. I back up because I've got a faster run speed, and my allies are coming. Got a critical there and just instantly killed him. I knew I was going to get away, and I apologize to Rasta again. Every time he dies, I feel bad, because I think Rasta contributed the most this game, because all Morphling and I were basically doing was following him around and helping him get us kills and helping him hold the line and stuff like that. So, if anybody was the hero of this game, it was Rasta. But it's getting later in the game, and while Rasta's disables will always be useful, it's getting to be my time to shine. Morph and I are kind of getting to the point where we're so strong that it's just very difficult for them to kill us. And I think another thing about carries, and especially in pub matches, this is at least interesting to me, is once a carry gets really farmed, it takes a lot of coordination, teamwork, and the correct items to do anything about it. And where I'm going with that is, I think because I get the assist goal there, which is really all I wanted rather. I think that if they were bad enough to let 2 carries farm to the point of being this strong, then it's pretty unlikely that they'll have the coordination do anything about it once we're this farm. So it's like the same thing that caused it to happen is what will make it pretty much uncounterable. But with that said, some observations I want to make about the general Dota 2 thing that I've kind of picked up on is, I really have been thrown off by the power of Lycan in these pub games. I mean, the power of Lycan in general. Like I don't play competitive, but I feel like Lycan must be such a strong hero. And whenever I say that, I get the naysayers that are like, no, dude, you can counter jungle Lycan. I'm like, yeah, I get that. All right, so countering jungle Lycan. Take 2 to 3 wards. At the start of the game, someone buys wards, sticks the wards right at the easy creep spawn and the pull spot is what I like to do. And then the Niagara, no, I'm just stuttering. At that point, the Lycan won't be able to farm effectively. It'll take him a long time to get his levels, and it'll just slow down the whole process. And unless someone has gold left over or can farm gold quickly to come and counter ward, he'll just be in a bad position where he won't be able to contribute much to the team. And that's great, but even when I do that, it still just doesn't work out, because either they'll de-ward it quickly because they've got the coordination, or if they don't have the coordination, it still won't work because he'll just go jungle in my jungle. It's like my lineups never have the right heroes to get ganks off in the jungle effectively, so he just goes in our jungle. He steals our jungle sometimes, and so we'll go try in the jungle and kill him, and if he can get to level 6 and pop that ult, he can usually run out and get away. So it just feels like in pub games there's nothing I can do to beat a Nyx other than beat a Lycan unless I pick a hero specifically designed to counter him. Like Ursa's a strong counter sometimes, but Lycan gets that early Roshan stuff and this is all counterable. Wards are great, but it just feels like you have to work so hard to counter Lycan. He kind of feels like an anti-mage to me, like ban-worthy and CM only because he's completely counterable, but you have to work so hard to counter it and devote so many resources. It's like a major problem. So take for example, games where I see Lycan get countered. Let's say I played a match where I warded the jungle, because, even if I'm support, carry, whatever role I am, if no one else is going to try to do anything about the Lycan, I will, because I'm just tired of losing games to fed Lycans that spent 20 minutes in the jungle, came out with Necro Book and pushed all our towers, or came out with a BKB, ulted, and just ran over all the agility heroes. Whatever the reason, I'm just tired of losing to Lycan, so even if I'm like a carry, I'll just buy the wards and ward the jungle just to make sure that doesn't happen to me, and it's worth it for sure. But unfortunately, even then, it sometimes doesn't work, like I said. But when I do see it work is when, say, we have a hero that can jungle as well, like a strong jungle, like an Axe or an Enchantress or a Chin, and they're actually competent in the jungle, and they'll just sit in our jungle and make it impossible for the Lycan to use it, or they'll go down to Lycan's jungle and make it impossible for Lycan to jungle, and I'll still ward the jungle if necessary. So in other words, he can't use either jungle, and he'll actually get ganked down by our jungle hero. That's kind of the ideal situation. In the game I'm speaking about, what ultimately wound up happening is we had a bounty hunter, so he just couldn't do anything. I warded the spawn, and then by the time he could actually start leveling in the jungle, bounty hunter just went out and free killed him. And you'll see me just kind of clean house here and get the coveted godlike. I would have been safe from the windwalk, but Rasta goes ahead and disables him for me, and it's an easy kill. Then, of course, I get the 1,100 damage critical and just pretty much blow Nyx out. And I got pretty lucky there. That was a lot of criticals in a row, but even without the criticals, we would have been fine. Even if I had gone down in that team fight, at this point, the game is well out of the reach of the Radiant. Does anyone else, when they play this game, have like a preferred side? Because I just built my first side, build a refresher, which is pretty cool. And I find a refresher orb here, which is really lucky for me, because like I said, it's like 35 minutes in and I have no HP regen, so I was thinking I'd have to courier like 2 flasks of regen to me, but I managed to come down here and find a regen. I intentionally left the lane because I was so hurt and I knew I didn't have any regen, and I knew since basically the entire team was down, they'd be able to push that rack, so I would start pushing out bottom. Because this is, you know, I was trying to end the game, because I knew it was very unlikely the other team could come back, at least in my mind, so I decided it'd be good to try to end the game as quickly as possible while not getting myself killed. And since they're probably low on gold from all the deaths, and I have a Shadow Blade and a Silence, I'm pretty much safe to solo push lanes now, because no one on their team can just 1v1 me and win. You know, they might even have a hard time 2v1ing me, depending on the situation. And you'll see I've snowballed. At this point, the farm is just out of control. It's not really a game anymore, it's just kind of cleaning up. I've got a Butterfly, or I'm near a Butterfly. I've got the Evasion now to help with Nyx from the Talisman. And this is when, you know, it's too bad the game is over. I mean, typically this is how it works. Once Drow or any carry gets this farm, the game is over, and Morphling's huge too. It's just kind of disappointing. It's like, man, I wish I didn't have to spend a whole game getting to this point, because this is fun, just blowing everybody out. But you get to blow everybody out because you farmed well, and you ganked well, and you just had a good game. So I think that's why my favorite heroes are heroes that like to farm, like semi-carries. I like semi-carries a lot because, you know, farm's important, but if you don't get a lot of farm, you still function. Because I don't like carries, because if the game goes badly, it's really hard for me to carry. A, because I don't have the skill to pull games out like that, and B, because I don't feel like I can do a whole lot to start turning the game around. So that's really disappointing for me. I don't like supports because I don't feel like anybody works with me, kind of thing. But in any case, we're rapidly approaching the end of this game finally, and you know, now it's Mega Creeps, so now the game is literally over. I've seen a couple YouTube videos where people come back from like the Mega Creeps, but those are like fringe games. They're just weird and usually pretty lame. So once Mega Creeps come in, particularly at this point in the game, so early on, it's over. So I had a lot of fun playing this game. Most of my Drow Ranger games do not go this well. Normally I have a hard time farming, or I get ganked down because I have such little life, no escape mechanism. They have all those high-powered intelligence nukes kind of thing. So, I missed my Silence on the Storm, which was pretty embarrassing, actually. And I finally get my Butterfly finished by killing that last tower. That's exciting, because now I'm going to ferry the items to me, and I won't get the Butterfly before the game ends, but you know the game's out of control when you have a Daedalus, a Shadow Blade, Treads, and a Butterfly, Daedalus, and Treads, and a Shadow Blade. It's like, wow. Like, the amount of farm I got is just absurd. So there goes the throne. My heroes are cheering, I'm cheering. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I know this was kind of a rough commentary, but I really enjoyed doing it. And once I get better at a good style for Dota 2, I think these will improve. But you know, I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and thank you. Everyone take care, and I will see you next time. Oh, and look at that. There's a good gold per minute, EXP per minute. I got the stats to back up my performance that game. Yeah. Alright, guys. I'll see you later.